Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. I guess you can call it a podcast. You guys, we're at the Pank. We're here to talk about Vaalley. But before we do, I have to say welcome to my new subby, 100, Anthony. Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for subscribing and welcome to the beautiful people family. We are glad you're here. And again, thank you. And you guys, I'm sorry. I don't care if it's one at a time, two at a time. I will continue to shout out my subbies, my new subbies, because I appreciate them. Like I appreciate y'all. I appreciate everybody. All right, let's talk about the pink. Oh, sorry. If you have not already, please consider subscribing. Hit the notification bell button, like, comment. Why don't you just like right now, okay? Before you forget, just go ahead and like. And let's talk about the pink. Let's talk about what happened. Oh my God, this episode. Oh my God, this episode. All right, so the episode starts off with these two doing it. Takaya, my neck, my back. You know what? I don't care. I don't care how crazy she is, even though she cracked me up. But I just feel like that song is forever going to be a classic. It's just the beat, like not even so much what she's saying, the beat of it, love it. But anyway, they're doing it, and I think I have a correction or something to be made because come to find out, I guess they got together on set. So I was saying that they hired her because she's his girlfriend, but no, apparently they were on set acting and then he ended up leaving his girlfriend for her. And I'm like, that's even worse. But they're doing it. He's looking down at her face. He's trying not to look at her, but she keeps like turning his head around so that he can look at her. And when he looks at her, he keeps seeing Mississippi. So it's so gross. He turns her over because, she just won't let his face go. And he does it, they do a doggy style. He's done. And then she tells him, you keep coming in that condom. I want that in my mouth. Ugh. Listen, I'm not judging, but and you don't even know him like that. Ugh. And it's COVID, and it's just nasty. But again, I'm not judging for people who do that. Do you, boo? All right, so we end up ending this scene with him telling her, "Nah, can't do any of that because I'm not exposing my seeds to anybody." And she's like, "I don't want no babies." He's like, "I don't want no hexes," and she says she digmatized, so she's the one with a hex on her. She ends up going and walking around and looking, and she sees where he has the ring, and she was about to touch it, and he's like, "Do you want like 4 necks and 5?" Arms and all that. Like he's telling her that if she touch it, something's gonna happen. And she said, what's it mean? What's it all about? And he just tells her that it's for protection. And she's like, don't seem like you need protection. And they end up talking about why he's not, security at the Pink anymore. And she's like, did you try to save one of them? He's like, how you know? And I'm like, yeah, girl, you just let it be known that you know. And she's like, because, every time we do something, you try not to look at me. And she's like, going forward, she didn't use the word, the term going forward, but that's what she meant. She's like, going forward, you're going to have to look at me. So he's like, all right, let's do it now. All right, scene is cut. All right, next we see Lil Murda, Big Teak, and a whole bunch of people in cars. And apparently, the name of their group is HVH, Hurt Village Hustlers. And they end up coming out with a car. It looks like a No Limit Soldier car, but it's wrapped in their colors and all that, and it has a big red bow on it. Lil Murda, gives it to Big Teak. Guess they bought it for him. They appreciate everything he did for them. And Big Teak is just very, very emotional, you guys. He get in the car. He's very emotional to the point where women, some women were coming up, I guess, to congratulate him, tell him, good for him. And Lil Murda didn't want them to see him crying or whatever, so he just kind of backed them up. And he tells them, you all right, we appreciate you, you good. And I'm just like, oh, he's so emotional. All right, so what's crazy is when you look at it a second time after knowing what's going to happen, and I'm just going to assume because we don't do the whole spoiler alert thing. This is a review and recap. Recap means we going over the shit. So you have obviously watched it already if you are watching this. So ain't no spoilers. We just going to talk about it. So you know what's going to happen in the end. And it's just crazy because, like I said, when you watch it a second time, which I have to do to review it, I go over the second time and you could just tell that like that crying that he was doing, it was something else wrong. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, this nigga's just unstable. unstable. What is wrong with him? But watching the second time, it hits different. It hits different. But I just think it's so crazy how these two, him, Big Teak and Murder, are able to really like they just kind of give these glares at each other. They look at each other like they really like each other for real. And we know it's acting, great acting in this episode. I mean, they've been doing great acting period, but great acting. This guy, and I don't know his real name, but great actor. He does an amazing job at coming off unstable. All right, so now we move on to we're back at the Pank, and we see Big L come out, and we also see Uncle Clifford sitting there with a dress in his hand. We didn't know at the time it was a dress, but it was a dress in his hand. He had on a cute little pink sweatsuit. I couldn't tell what it was. It wasn't Nike or nothing like that. It had some words, but I couldn't see it. But it was cute to see him in some little pink and white gym shoes and everything instead of, all dressed up. But Haley comes out because Big L done turned off the water because he ain't paid her. She's like, turn on the water. I ain't playing with you. And Uncle Clifford has her dress. And he's like, oh, you looking for this little pretty pink number? She's like, give me my dress. So she goes back into the shower and she's getting dressed or whatever. And then they're looking at her on the camera. And Big L, no, Uncle Clifford is just like, I gotta kill her. I gotta kill her. And I'm like, that is hilarious. They keep talking about killing this girl. And, Big L is just like, nah, I can't do that. We got enough blood on our hands. Clifford, crazy, talking about maybe we could just turn her in. He's like, yeah, too bad she didn't pull the trigger or, bury the body. And I'm like, Clifford, that's just so stupid for you to even think of. You know she ain't do none of that stuff. So, yeah, she brought him around and she was the reason why it happened. But what you gonna turn her in for? So Big L and Uncle Clifford talking about how much it's gonna cost to get the new AC units or whatever. And he's like, "Listen, I'm gonna have to start showing my feet online or something to get some extra money." And Big L takes out his phone and shows a plugger, an online plugger with Whisper and what's the other one's name? Roulette. And they having a spades game, talking about come on down to the pink. He's like, remind me to sue these heifers for copyright infringement. And I'm like, where they having the spades game at? Because as far as we know, ain't the pink closed? Is it still closed, or was he able to get it up? Because he said he still got to give them 11,000 to reopen. No, he said to reopen. So I'm assuming they not open. But anyway, Big L lets him know that Duffy's back around with that stuff. And, Uncle Clifford just says, I don't really fool with that. I don't like that. So I feel like he was letting him know that that's an option. But as we know, Uncle Clifford's not with it. But Big L was doing it anyway. So, which I don't think Uncle Clifford knows. All right, so we at the barbershop with Murda and Teak, and this is a very Teak heavy episode, you guys. I mean, it's all about Teak pretty much, so there will be a lot of Teak, big Teak. So the guy is burning his hair down or whatever. Interesting technique. I've never seen that before. Has anyone ever seen that or heard of that? Like he's burning his afro down, and I mean, I guess his line looks great, so we'll go with that. Just then, they talking about how Rome died, and the barber asked Murder, was it the Rona? And he's like, nah, the blogs didn't say what it was. So at this point, and it's so interesting that he was just on the road with him. Like y'all was just traveling together, and you don't even know how he died. You just know that he just up and died. But Lil Murder didn't know. So he's calling Miss Mississippi, and she finally answers the phone. So he walks outside, and the barber turns Teak around so that he can see his hair, and he's like, "Hi," he's like, "Look at you, you done. Casket sharp." And I'm like, ugh, did he really just say that? And it's so interesting that we're looking at him, looking at himself in the mirror, but there's also a picture of a man with a guitar, and right behind him is like the devil and devil ears and everything. So interesting. Like, number one, I would not want that picture. Like, it's a terrifying picture. But all of it, like I said, upon the second look, just makes more sense. And like you could just pick up on all these little things. All right, so then we have Keyshawn and Lil Murda talking on the phone, and she's telling him that when they were on the road, some things happened with Rome, and he's like, "What?" And she said he tried it, And I'm like, yeah, they're not saying the R word. And he's like, oh, well, then I'm glad he's dead. And then she said, there's something else. Like, Woody, I told Woody that he knows about you. And he's like, what? How you know? And she was just about to, excuse me, she was just about to tell him, I guess, that he had a video when her man walks in and he's like, who are you talking to? And she's like, it was murder. You know, we was talking about Rome's funeral. And then he goes on this whole tangent about how, Rome was such a good guy. And I'm like, you're such a freaking idiot and terrible judge of character. Like, are you kidding me? And he didn't like you at all. So, yeah. So he ends up telling her that he has to go help someone put in a fireplace or something. And fire pit, fireplace, something like that. I think it's a fire pit. And he's like, do you want to come? I'm like, dang, she ain't got to come with all these kids to watch you work. So she says no. And he's like, fine. So he leaves. All right, so let's just wrap up Keyshawn for now. And the fact that as soon as he leaves, she grabs a screwdriver, opens up the vent, she takes out a gun, cute little pink gun. She grabs the kids, she tries to get out of there. She's like, we're going on a trip, going on a trip. I don't know where she was going, but good for her. Unfortunately, the car won't start. And she goes under the hood just to see. I couldn't make out what he had done to it, but he definitely tampered with it so it wouldn't run. And she just politely unpacks the kids and goes back in the house. And I'm like, girl, no, keep going. Go somewhere. Get on the bus. Take an Uber. Take a cab. Something. You got to keep going. So back in front of the barbershop, Big T comes out and he's like, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, I don't know, just some stuff happening or whatever. He's like, 1 minute shit popping, the next minute, it's just so much going on. And Big T is like, yeah, where you want me to drop you off at? And Lil Murder was like, nowhere, I'm riding with you. And he's looking like, dang, I'm just really ready to drop you off. And he's like, nah, it's cool. You can ride with me. You can slide. But he really looked like, and Lil Murder picked up on it too because he was like, unless you got something better to do. And he's like, no, you can go. So that was important as well. Like that's something else that, for one, when I saw it, I was like, what is he trying to go do? But I mean, now we know. But he definitely had some other plans that he wanted to do. Also, y'all, did Lil Murder not have a house? I'm just like, why they ain't go to the house at some point? Like, I don't know. All right, so now we have Mercedes. She's gone over to Terica's house to take them some groceries, and Terica's stepmom opens the door and she looks a mess. Yeah, I'm just wondering how she got this big old beautiful house and she told Mercedes that she needs a job. Girl, how you living in that house then? But Terica bring not Terica, Mercedes brings over some groceries. She's, putting them away. She ends up telling her that, you called Terica a mistake. And she's like, what? No, I would never do that. And she's like, that's my daughter. I raised her. You pushed her out, but I raised her. That's my daughter. I would never say that. But obviously, she has a problem. So Mercedes was saying that she would try to help her get some help. Nah, if you're not helping me get a job, you can't help me with nothing. She tells her, I'll take Tarek off your hands for a little bit. Nah, I see what you're trying to do. And she's like, no, I'm just trying to help. I'm not trying to get custody back. So the lady, I guess her name is Shell, she's like, nah, you can't take her to that hood that you live in. And so Mercedes like, no matter what I do, it's never good enough for you. Like, it's never going to be good enough. I wonder why she can't attempt to get custody back. I mean, well, she's just, well, I won't say just a stripper, but she's making money and she's the biological. I don't know, but in a minute, it ain't gonna matter because Terica's what, like 17, 16, 17? So as Mercedes is leaving, she's blowing up Terica. Terica's not answering the phone. She keeps, it keeps going to voicemail. Then she gets a call and it's Coach. Coach is like, hey, how about finishing up that Mercedes experience? I'm like, dude, she did already. Okay, she did with your wife. And she's like, okay. And he's like, yeah, Farrah just can't stop talking about you. And I know it's supposed to just be me and you, but can you oblige her one more time? Because, if she's happy, then I'm happy. And she's not about it. She's just like, I just wanted it to be us. He's like, just one more time. She's like, fine. Because Terica calls on the other line. But as she's, picking it up and trying to answer, Terica's not saying anything. So, yeah, very upsetting. Y'all would have a fit if I got a call from my baby and she ain't say nothing. When I tell you a fit. All right, so then we have Big Teak and Murder at a little barbecue joint. They're about to have some wings and everything, and the waitress is super flirty with Teak. Talking about his pretty eyes and light skinned niggas coming back in style. I'm like, girl, they never left for me. They never left. Even though I no longer have that preference, I just like whoever, I just like handsome men. I'll just say that. So, um, yeah, so she's super thirsty, and you could see Lil Murda getting jealous. He's like, yeah, why don't you just go get us something to drink and get yourself something too? And then when she walked away, he's like, her thirsty ass. And Big T is like, don't be jealous. Don't be jealous. I ain't jealous. Yeah, you are jealous. It's so funny. They act like they are. Well, I guess they are in a real relationship. So in the scene, we also find out that Lil Murda chose Teak because apparently he was pushed into a utility closet and he thought he was about to get beat up by some COs, and it was Lil Murda. And he said something about Lil Murda had candles and all kind of stuff. I'm like, Lil Murda is just so romantic. He just is. He's a lover boy. So he ends up asking about Uncle Clifford, and he's like, what's he like? And he goes, she. Nigga, what? She? And he's like, he likes to be called she. What? Like he was so confused. And he's like, yeah, it's confusing, but that is what it is. So Tig is like, tell me about him. Her. Tell me about this nigga. So Lil Murda starts describing being with Uncle Clifford as like having a funnel cake once a year, seeing an eclipse, like everything that's just rare and special and not, something that happens all the time. And I'm like, oh, y'all, dang it. He's just so romantic. But, he says he fucked it up. And Big T is like, yeah, you fuck up a lot of stuff. And he's like, yeah. So he tries to touch his hand. Then Big T pulls his hand away. But then I guess he thought about it like, of course, what was going to happen tonight or whatever. And he doesn't want him to, think that anything happened while he's mad at him. So he ends up touching his nose like, yeah, we good. So cute little scene. Y'all, the way they look at each other, for real, for real. Ooh-wee, great acting. All right, so after eating, they stop at the gas station, and it's some girls next to them or whatever in a car, and he hears himself on the radio. So he goes, he turns it up. He's like, oh my God, that's me. So they're all really happy. Teak runs around telling everybody to turn the radio to the same radio station, and he gets on top of the car, Lil Murda, and he's, like really taking it all in that, oh my God, I'm on the radio. So it's a cute little scene, and then somebody comes up behind, and he's like, hey, you done with the pump or what? Teak lost his shit as usual, and he was about to get to him, and Lil Murda was like, hey, you better be glad I don't let him get to you. You better be glad he's, holding Teak back. I'm like, Teak is just a ticking time bomb. I swear to God. All right, so back at the Pink, which is very confusing because I thought it was shut down. Are they anywhere else besides the Pink? No, it's the Pink. It's so confusing because did they open back up? I don't understand. Maybe they opened back up, but they just haven't paid the fine yet. I think maybe that's what it is. But we see Roulette and Whisper. Them girls bad. Y'all, Whisper, no, not Whisper. Roulette took off her shoes and was basically standing all the way at the top of the pole. It was crazy. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I just be so taken aback from the stuff that they can do on this pole. But the guy that ended up, having her do him for a stack comes over and asks about Whisper. She's like, I don't think she does that. And he's like, well, can you talk to her for me? I give her 2 stacks just to let me do her. And she's like, oh, well, I wish I had the option of laying on my back as opposed to being on my knees. And he's like, just hook me up. It'll come back to you. So she's just looking at Whisper. And I'm like, don't do it. Number one, y'all ain't even supposed to be doing all that up in there. But I think she's going to eventually do it. All right, so next we at the condo with Farrah, Mercedes, and Coach. And Coach is going in the kitchen to blend up some things apparently, and Farrah just cannot keep her hands off of Mercedes. And Mercedes keep moving her hand like, yo, don't mess up my bag. Like he can't know that we did anything. You gotta, keep calm. Farrah's like, I can't stop thinking about you. I'm like, man, she didn't turned her all the way out. Unless she was lying and was already turned out. But it's like she is just all over Mercedes. And again, Mercedes is very uncomfortable. So Coach comes back out. He got money. He set it on the table. And he's like, all right, let's finish up this experience. And, Mercedes is like, okay, cool, I'm with it. Listen, we knew this was going to be a mess. We knew this was going to be a mess. Y'all, then we have Haley and Andre, and I'm sorry, I just don't care. Like, I don't even want to talk about it because number one, I don't even understand what's going on. I don't know who these white people are. I don't know. And I guess I could watch it back this second time and try to really listen and grasp who this lady that ends up coming in. She likes Haley. She ends up giving Haley what she wants, apparently. And Corbin's there. I don't remember when Corbin got this mean. I really, really don't. It's crazy. But I just don't care about this storyline with the whole selling of the pink and Haley. I don't care. All right, so back at the club, we see that Whisper is over there dancing with the guy. I mean, she's not doing anything wrong or anything, but he's throwing a lot of money. And we see Roulette kind of looking irritated, I guess, maybe because she's making all the money. But I don't know. It's not like she is letting him do anything. They're not in the champagne room or the boom boom room or anything. But it just looks a little jealous. So she ends up going to her car, sitting in the car, and then we have Duffy come around, and I guess they have this connection. They end up kissing. All right, great. And it's sad because he was telling her how she's very pretty and she's the prettiest woman in there, and she's like, yeah, in the parking lot. And I just feel like her self-esteem is low because she was just like, yeah, I know you lying and all that. And I'm just like, oh, poor thing, poor thing. But again, they end up kissing, so maybe that'll be a thing. All right, so we back with Coach Farah and Mercedes. They doing it. Coach is really looking like he doing some things. He's up there. He's pounding away, talking to himself. He's like, "Give it to me, yeah, give it to me, give it to me." And then suddenly we see that Farah is down there as well. Like she's up there, but down there, and she got her fingers there, or whatever. And Mercedes is really, really, feeling it, but not him. She's feeling Farah, and he finally realizes, and he stops, and he backs up, and he's like, there, you been cheating on me? And he grabbed her and she's like, what are you talking about? I know when two bitches been together before. And because, I mean, they were like holding hands and doing all kind of grasping hands rather and all that. So she ends up telling him that we've been together 19 years and you don't even know that I like P. And I'm like, so that wasn't your first time? Because she said she probably like it more than he does. And I'm like, she sounds very experienced, but that's her way, I guess. And Mercedes was looking, she kind of told that, yeah, I like it. And this is kind of what I've been doing without really saying this is what I've been doing. And he put two and two together anyway. So, Mercedes still want her money. And he's just like, nah, I wish I would. That's not what I had you over here. I had you over here for me, not her. So he ends up going and telling her to get out. You got to get out of here. So he ends up going to pick up his money just to make sure Mercedes don't take it on her way out. And the wife is like, you don't break a deal. You're supposed to give her this money. You're supposed to give her the money. He's like, nah, y'all both broke my heart. I'm like, oh. But the wife, Farah, gives Mercedes her stripper heels. And Mercedes gives her this look and then shakes her head. And she shakes her head like, I can't help it. And in that instance, I didn't know what she wanted her to do. Like, what did she expect her to do? Choose her over her husband? Excuse me, I don't know. But she ends up leaving with no money and no shoes on. All right, so Big Teak and Lil Murda pull up at a spot, and Big Teak gets out, and Lil Murda's like, I'll be in a second or whatever. And he's on the phone with Woody, and Woody's telling him that, listen, when we go back on the road, T can't come. He's a ticking time bomb, basically. And he's like, nah, he got to come. That's my security. Nah, he does way too much. So he just keeps saying how Rome OD'd. And he's like, that's funny, he OD'd. So he's like, Woody's like, listen, if you don't want to handle it, I guess he's talking about with Big Teak in terms of telling him he can't come. He's like, if you don't want to handle it, I'll handle it because I'm good at handling things. So I don't know if Lil Murda put it together or whatever, but the phone ends up going dead before he can expound. And then we see Lil Murda going in getting a gun from the glove box, and I'm like, well, I know he ain't finna go kill him so that he don't come on the road. So what's happening? So Lil Murda had ended up telling Woody that he thought he was there copping, I guess, some weed or something, but he ends up going in. And we see Big Teak is walking through this house, and he gets to a closet, and all you can hear is like a woman shouting and then kids screaming and everything. He opens the door, and it's what you could tell is him as a child, but he has his blood all over him, and he's just standing there. So I'm just like, Teak is real fucked up. Like, he is really messed up in the head. Come to find out, because it ends up that, what's his name? Lil Murder brings the Glock in, and he's like, "How you gonna come into a trap house without your glizzy?" And he's like, "It ain't no trap house. This is where I used to live." And Lil Murder's like, "Well, you ain't coming back here again, so it's all over." So anyway, it ends up. I'm just gonna say, when they were on the car and they were talking, we find out that all that screaming and stuff that we were hearing was his mom. I guess I don't know if she snapped, was she on drugs? I don't remember that part, but she's like killing her kids, and he's standing there witnessing her, kill his sisters, his brothers, like 8 year old, 9 year old, 8 month old, and that's all the screaming that we were hearing. And he said that he ran and he just hid in the closet. So he feels guilty basically for still being alive. He's like, my life should have ended then, I guess, with his siblings or whatever. So very sad. He got a lot going on in his head. He really, really does. All right, so now we back at the house with Uncle Clifford and his grandma. His grandma cracks me up. They talking about somebody with a magnum and all that stuff, like a gun. And she's like, "That's how you need to kill that little light skinned bitch." And I'm like, they are really talking about killing Haley. It is hilarious. And she sounds for real. But he's taking her sugar and he's like, "Your sugar is fine. So I don't understand why you sweating like this." And then she starts coughing. And he's like, "Oh, hold on." Excuse me. He takes her temperature. She has a fever of 102. So then he calls the girl Toya. That's the one who was supposed to have the allergies, who, come to find out, she's coughing. And he's like, "I knew there wasn't no allergies." Yeah, your grandma unfortunately has COVID. And Toya unfortunately has COVID. She's a super spreader. So I am very interested to see where this goes and how many of them will end up catching COVID, because they was just all around her with the whole allergy thing. They still let her run around doing whatever she wanted to do even after they got shut down. So yeah, very interesting. But I hope the grandma survived. I'm like, y'all bet not kill the grandmother off. Y'all, Autumn ends up being in Andre's house. They end up doing it there. There's that. All right, so we back sitting on the car with Teak and Lil Murder, and they're talking, and he's telling him, how he feels upset and he feels responsible for him being in the hole all the time. He's like, "That wasn't the first time I was in the hole. You don't owe me nothing." And he's like, "But I owe you everything." So he's like telling him about the teardrops on his eyes, and he's like, "People think that those are the people that I killed. I killed way more people than these three. Apparently those are," and then he starts naming off his sisters and brothers. So very sad. um then they get in the car because he just keeps asking him, "Where can I drop you off at? Where can I drop you off at? You're not dropping me off. You're not dropping me off." And it's strange because I feel like Lil Murder kind of felt like something was going to happen, because he said, "I don't want to leave you alone so that you can be in this dark place alone with your head and your thoughts or whatever." So I feel like he knew something was coming. So Big T puts the gun to his head. Of course, Lil Murda is having a fit, trying to talk him down. "You got me. We got a future. We gonna make money. We gonna buy houses. We gonna have kids. We gonna do all this." And he's just like, "No, no. Tonight is my night. Tonight is the night." And after going back and forth, and y'all, I had my eyes closed the whole time. I'm like, "Oh my God!" But they end up panning away, and then you just hear the noise and you see Lil Murda come out, and he has blood all over him, and he's just like, not laying down, but just sliding down the car, like, "Oh my God." So sad. Oh, Big Teak. And for him to actually be there to witness it, it's just gonna fuck him up. Like, they just all have issues. So we end up being back at Uncle Clifford's house, and we see that the grandma goes to the door and she's asking, "Dad, is that you?" And that was kind of strange to me, because I felt like, did she assist her dad? I'm sure is, in heaven. So was she thinking that she's dying or whatever? Like, it was just strange that she said that. But it ends up being Lil Murda, of course. He's asking for Uncle Clifford. Uncle Clifford comes to the door. He sees him all bloody and everything. And Lil Murda's just like, "I'm not okay." Oh, so sad. And so he just takes him. And I'm like, "No, 6 feet. They have the coronavirus in that house. Little Murder's about to get worse." And he ends up hugging him and everything and taking him in the house. And I'm like, it's about to just spread like crazy. I'm very interested in seeing what happens with this COVID for real because they are spreading this shit. Like, I mean, this is just the way that it happens. But oh my God, you guys, this episode so sad, so sad. But whoever I wish I knew his name, the actor who is playing Teak. When I tell you he plays to the T, he is amazing. They have some great actors on this show. So even if the script is a little, I don't know, wonky sometimes, they just play it up and they're able to get, convey what we need to see. So the episode was good. And you guys, let's talk about it. Again, if you have not already, please like the video. Let's comment. Let's talk about what you guys felt about the show. Do you feel like it's getting better? Do you like where it's going? Because you got to admit it's totally different from season 1 and all that. But I'm not mad at it. Like, we are focusing on different people in different episodes, and that's okay. But if you are still here, you are the real MVP. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you have not already, please consider subscribing. It's free and it only takes a click of a button. And I will see you guys in the next video. I actually have 2 videos tonight, of course. We have Real Housewives of Atlanta and Married to Medicine. So I don't know if they'll be up tonight or tomorrow. But thank you guys and smooches.